I'm Riley Chow of Gold Derby, and Christmas has come in July because the Emmy nominations are here. I'm here with Charlie, Luca, Matt, Tony, and Zach. Unfortunately, I have your Emmy pundit cards here. Here's mine, and we're just going to have to chop that up. Matt, you're no longer an Emmy pundit.
Yeah.
Zach.
Oh, come on now. I did okay.
Charlie, yours actually expired last year, so that's kind of awkward.
Damn it, I paid my dues.
Tony, you can keep yours. And Luca, you have a little stamp on yours that says that you came second last year, and you actually placed in the top 10 again. So we need to hear from you first. What did you know that we all did not?
Oh, God, what did I know? I'd like to say that I knew a lot, but I have to say that a lot of my predictions were last-minute predictions and just, my gut telling me that certain performers were going to get in. After I watched Game of Thrones season 8, I didn't like the season, but I realized that it could have only been the internet bubble that didn't like season 8. And then I realized, voters are going to just want to give the show a farewell hug. So I just tried to predict it in as many categories as possible. I almost had all 4 Game of Thrones supporting actresses in, but I took out Sophie Turner last minute, and I was very close to putting in Alfie Allen and also Kit Harington into drama actor. And I was also very close to taking out Richard Madden last night because I had this weird feeling that he was not going to get nominated. What I didn't know is that Bodyguard would get nominated and he would be left out anyway. And otherwise, I just felt like this year was about reading the temperature in the room, about seeing what people are actually watching, what they're liking. For example, When They See Us, it blew up when it came out on May 31st, and I realized that the industry was going to respond. I didn't think it was going to respond this much. I didn't think it would get, 2 lead actresses, 2 supporting actresses, and 3 supporting actors, but I knew it would perform well. And the same for Fleabag and shows like, I miss shows like Schitt's Creek, but I think what we saw now this year is that name check isn't everything.
All right, and Tony, you also got 73%, which is an A+ in our books. So take us away.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad to know that. I hadn't even checked because I didn't know what you were doing when you were cutting up cards and stuff like that. So I'm glad mine's still intact. I'm elated over these nominations. I'm especially elated with the love for Fleabag and Russian Doll, and I think that those 2 particularly were ones that I thought, yeah, those are going to do pretty well. Now, I didn't know they were going to do as well as they did. Russian Doll getting 2 writing nominations is just insane. And I also think that this is kind of a shift that maybe Veep has had its time. But I also thought that Barry would be the big winner. I didn't know it was going to be this big of a winner to get 3 supporting actor nominations. So I
think you had all 3 of them in, though.
I don't think I had Stephen Root. Did I?
I'll check on that. But you keep going.
No, Barry is probably, I think this is no longer, in the beginning of the season, we were talking about Maisel versus Veep. And I think now the conversation is really Maisel versus Barry. Because they both just did fantastic and got more nominations than they needed to get in order to be frontrunners. But they're both, I think, the strongest frontrunners, and Veep is kind of like a third.
Yeah, you did get 6 out of 6 in that category. That's did I.
Wow.
All right, let's hear from Zach. What do you think about this comedy race? Is it still Maisel or is it Maisel and Barry now?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know if Veep is even in third, honestly, considering that it couldn't even get double-digit nominations. This is a show that used to get like 17 bids on its best day, multiple writing and directing nominations, and this go round it couldn't even get into directing. I think that it's kind of done, honestly, aside from Julia, I think can still win. But maybe it's in fourth behind Russian Doll, which managed to overperform over it. I think that it is going to come down to Maisel and Barry. Barry, honestly, could be the spoiler because, it checked off all the boxes it needed to check off. It got in for writing. It got in for directing. It got in for 5 acting contenders. It got in above the line. It got in below the line. And not for nothing, it was the most talked about comedy series of this season. So I think that maybe that could be our new frontrunner. Maisel still is formidable. It's got 20 nominations, which is kind of crazy for a comedy contender. But I mean, no writing nomination. And it just won that last year. I still can't believe that it didn't get in there.
Yeah, they went with Pen 15 instead.
Yeah, which had a resounding what from me, because I'd never heard of the show, and apparently neither had the Emmy website, because I didn't even have a photo of it up. So, hand it to those wacky writers to always keep surprising us.
That's crazy. My God.
Like, I'm not sure that we've ever seen a show win the WJ Award for Best Comedy Series for its Emmy-eligible season and then not get an Emmy writing nomination.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
The
Charlie,
other-
what do you think?
Oh, what was that?
What do you think about the race?
Oh, are you asking me after you cut up my card? I think it's interesting. I think we thought there might be a bit more, competition in the drama side, but after seeing what happened there and Game of Thrones, basically it was like a recreation of what happened at King's Landing, where Game of Thrones has now just basically slaughtered everybody else. No one could break into double digits. No one could even break into double digits. But the comedy is really interesting, and I think the love for Barry, even though I was predicting like Sarah Goldberg to get nominated, it's still the level of intensity for that show I think is really surprising, and I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens on that side. I think that this is the most interesting limited series race that we have had in some time, where even though Chernobyl has the most nominations of those nominated contenders, I think that When They See Us is definitely very much still in this hunt. And I think Escape at Dannemora is still in this hunt. Hell, Fosse Verdon could still be in this. I think it's a very, very interesting race that we're still going to have to take some time to process and see what happens with that.
All right, and Matt, thanks for waiting.
No worries. Anytime. Yeah, look, a lot of the conversation's been surrounding the comedy race and what a like real competition we have here. Like, I think I tend to think still, especially in this category, like back a winner. Maybe like, so I think Maisel might be just out in front, just is how I'm feeling. 30 Rock won 3 in a row. The Modern Family won 5 in a row. Then Veep won 3 in a row. So, but Barry has really entered the game, and this is going to be. I would say, like, is there any chance like Fleabag did so well with nominations and Killing Eve, but it has won Best Comedy Series 3 times before at the Emmys. I wouldn't discount it, particularly in a category where there could be some vote splitting in that top race.
It's crazy how we had Veep and Game of Thrones airing together, and the Veep finale was so well received. The Game of Thrones finale was not that well received, and one of them gets a directing nomination.
One of them gets 3 directing nominations.
Well, for the finale, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the finales. Yeah.
I think, you just have to. I've been saying this for a while now about Game of Thrones, and I feel somewhat. And it's not even really a competition over there.
Not at all.
So, I mean, the fact that it got in for people who weren't even submitted by HBO, Alfie Allen and Gwendolyn Christie. That
as well.
I'm sorry.
And Carice Van Houten.
Yes, Carice Van Houten. Yeah, it maxed out in acting nominations. It maxed out in writing and directing nominations. I mean, they literally just voted for this show anywhere they could find a place to vote for it. So I think just get ready to hear Ramin Djawadi's music multiple times on the telecast.
But
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that if Game of Thrones does not win drama series, it'll be one of the biggest upsets of
Ever.
the entire Emmy history.
yeah, but
I mean, the show
I
that's
thi-
in second place in terms of nominations on the drama side is actually The Handmaid's Tale, and they were not eligible in several categories.
Mhm.
And they got a second cinematography nomination, pushing Ozark out. So they even made some gains from last year.
You can't keep this show down, no matter.
that's another thing where, you know, people were talking about the last 3 episodes of last year and how panned they were, and that could be another internet discussion or internet bubble. And, you know, people in the industry might have responded to those last 3 episodes more than we thought they did, or they could be voting for season 3. I mean, we really don't know what they were voting for, especially since Cherry Jones and Bradley Whitford, for example, have already appeared in the 3rd season. So we don't know who they're voting for, but the show they're not done with The Handmaid's Tale. And I think it's very important for us to look at these 11 nominations for next year, because it's an impressive feat, honestly. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, what I was thinking is that what's actually interesting about that was that it may be at the time when those episodes were released last year, they may have gotten the immediate reactions, because of course now we have immediate reactions to everything. It may have gotten panned, but and some of the people who voted for it may not have liked it at first. But what these 3 episodes had, which the first part of the second season didn't have, is time to digest it, and that's something that it might have been a big advantage for that.
Yeah, that's true. And
I think what I want to throw in with Game of Thrones is, like, it's going to have a lot of vote splitting, particularly at the main show. And I wonder if it is sort of its own riches could be its own problem in some of these categories, where you've got so many supporting actors, so many supporting actresses, so many directors all competing against themselves, could perhaps provide a path for other series to end up getting some Emmy wins.
And I think one of the interesting things there, I think the real test of that will be Peter Dinklage, because we've seen Dinklage win against one co-star. We don't know if he can win against 2. And granted, but at the same time, he might also fall into that category of, vote splitting is a thing unless one of them is the clear kind of favorite, which Dinklage always is. And I would argue this season, whatever dramatic problems you might have with the season, that it was probably Dinklage's best season from a performance standpoint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, the fact that he's won for seasons where he barely had anything to do kind of shows you that he is at least the clear frontrunner from the show overall. And so, especially this year where he has so much more to do substantially in terms of, episode submissions, I think that makes him more of a front runner. The one that I think is probably, where vote splitting could most certainly occur would be in the supporting actress race, where they have 4 contenders. Who out of there is going to stand out? Is it going to be Gwendolyn Christie or Maisie Williams? It certainly ain't going to be Lena Headey.
I think if it was, all we know is that probably not Lena Headey is the standout.
Watch it be her this year, and that sort of weird Ben Mendelsohn and Bloodline type.
Or Martha Martindale, the Americans, because she doesn't do that much except stand there and drink wine.
Well, to defend her episode a tiny bit, I think she does give a very, impactful performance in the 10 minutes of screen time she has in The Bells. She's amazing, but I don't think a Game of Thrones actress is winning there. I think Fiona Shaw got 2 nominations today. She also got in for Fleabag, I believe, which, 2 nominations could be a warning, and something that, I've missed in previous years, like with Ann Dowd when she got supporting actress for The Handmaid's Tale and then guest actress for The Leftovers. And sometimes when you have multiple nominations, and then they usually award you for the bigger one. So I think Fiona Shaw could be a real threat here, even though she really doesn't do anything in Killing Eve except for, stand there and sit at a table and drink wine. But also Julia Garner, though, who, got in at SAG, which for a 5 actor lineup is incredible. So it'll be a very interesting race because there's no clear front runner, in my opinion.
I found it interesting that Rachel Brosnahan did not get a second nomination for SNL when Sandra Oh and Emma Thompson did, and their episodes were not really that much better received than hers.
Well, it's crazy with SNL overall. I mean, no supporting actor nominees after getting 2 last year. Only 1 supporting actress nominee when they got 3 in the last 2 years. It still got 18 nominations overall, so it's not exactly a bad day for Saturday Night Live. You can thank all of the guest actors, the men, for
like Robert De Niro.
Yeah, Robert De Niro.
Yeah, and his stellar turn.
What were we saying about name checking not being a thing anymore?
Right.
Yeah, I was so excited for Who is America to pose a threat, but it missed writing and it missed lead actor and has 3 nominations overall. So this will be SNL again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would put a slight thing for documentary now, but
Yeah.
it's still SNL still the overwhelming favorite.
Well, I do want to say a shout out and big kudos to documentary now as able to pick up writing and directing nominations alongside their sketch series. Yeah. So it had a great day and is probably the alternate to SNL in the variety sketch category.
I would have more confidence in that if we had seen Owen Wilson or Cate Blanchett get in for Death.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
I think in comedy, I'd say Fleabag is actually what I'm going to be ranking second below Barry. Before the nominations, I was kind of betting on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel because it had won more Guild Awards than any comedy ever had for a single season. But I also had my eye on Barry because it got more nominations than any comedy ever had for a first season. So it broke out immediately. Fleabag, I think it got 11 nominations. We kind of think of it as a one-woman show, yet here it is getting 5 acting nominations. So that's huge. And I think any nominations that it missed can just be chalked up to it coming out so late. I mean, there's certain branches that are much less have their finger on the pulse of stuff that's coming out at the end of eligibility. I think that maybe between now and voting for the winners, we'll see a lot more people watch Fleabag compared to these other shows. Ultimately, I'm going to be betting on Barry because of the female vote split. You have all these female-driven shows. You've got Veep, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, Russian Doll, Fleabag that all performed extremely well. I think that Barry has a different contingent within the Academy. And it's not even going to have the Kaminsky method taking votes away from it as another male-driven show about actors.
R.I.P. Kaminsky method. I was so
I was so proud of that.
You were proud of that?
I was proud that I kept it out of my predictions.
Oh,
I just said to myself, this feels like another, Mozart in the Jungle type show. It does well at the Golden Globes. Maybe it'll get in for the acting awards, which I thought it would, but I just didn't see it happening with series.
I love the Kaminsky method. I was so sad by that. I should say about Fleabag, I think that honestly, Phoebe Waller-Bridge is a nice spoiler in Best Actress, considering that you have literally the 2 returning champions coming in, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who has a great comeback story, and Rachel Brosnahan, who just won last year. So, I mean, if they want to reward Fleabag with something major, I think that actress would be the place to go. And considering that it is the last season as well, they've only got 1 shot to reward her for this. And, considering that Phoebe Waller-Bridge is, also nominated for writing, and I guess, is she still a producer on Killing Eve? Or
Yes, yes.
Okay. So,
But she's not writing it anymore. She's not writing it.
No.
So, she's got, sort of the it girl factor about her right now, which could help her chances quite a bit.
Yeah. And something else that I realized this year is that I think the age bias in the Academy is starting to go away because we have quite a few young people nominated. Just in the Drama Supporting Actress category alone, we have Sophie Turner, Maisie Williams, Julia Garner, who are all in their 20s. Then we have Joey King for The Act in Limited Series Actress, which is one of my favorite nominations of the entire day. Because it's this, Joey, it was a breakthrough performance. Honestly, if you look at her credits before this, you wouldn't think she's this actress who can pull off a performance like the one in The Act. And I think it's so great to see all of these performances nominated, even though, you know, sometimes we say that Academy voters only gravitate towards, you know, the veteran actors that have been working for many years and have a lot of experience. And for me, you know, someone who's extremely young still, I'm just happy to see young people nominated who are very talented.
Representation.
Yes.
Representation for young people. Oh, what a new thing.
Hey,
Well,
when
it is a television academy.
revolution comes, you will not be spared.
I'm the oldest here. When the revolution comes, I'll be dead.
One can hope.
Well, at least they're deserving. I think Joey King, honestly, I heard a lot of people doubting her nomination because of her age. And I just think it shows that they either watched the act, and if you watch the act, I think she's undeniable. And for me, it was just, or someone like Asante Black for When They See Us, which is one of the most shocking nominations of the day. But
he's like 16, 17 years old, I think.
Exactly. But even if you look at his performance, I think, especially in that first episode, he is one of the standouts, and he delivers with the material he's given. And he's just, you know, he's so young in that he can give a performance like the one he did with, you know, at such a young age. For me, it's incredible. But yeah,
I think the two most surprising nominations for me, one would be Ray Donovan in cinematography. Because what is it, like season 7 now, and they're breaking in there now? I don't know. And then the other one would be the second supporting actress in When They See Us. Can anyone tell me who she plays?
no.
Let me open up IMDb real quick, and I'll get back to you.
What's her name? Sasha.
Linda McRae. That's who she plays. She plays Antron McRae's mother
Or sister.
or sister. Yes.
Is she the one who's working at the rental car company, and she's telling the story to him while he's in juvie?
I think so. This is so awful. I should know.
Who's Carly Benbury playing? I thought she had a vaguely sympathetic role, but
Say what?
I don't know.
I think we should, I mean, just mention how well that show did overall with the actors. The fact that they got in people who feel like they're from out of nowhere, including that lead actress nomination for, and her name is escaping me right now.
Ingenue Ellis.
Thank you, Ingenue Ellis. Her getting in alongside Niecy Nash. You know, I think that shows a lot of strength for that show overall.
Well, we've been saying for a long time that for example, you know, Jerome, his big obstacle was getting nominated. I think now that he's in a really strong position to win.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think he's in a strong position. I just think that Jared Harris is going to give him a big run. Is going to be that's going to be a marquee race.
Well, that whole category is going to be a marquee race.
It's incredible.
I mean, yeah, Jared Harris is somebody, you know, he's a veteran actor. You know, he's a previous nominee for Mad Men. You know, I mean, that could be a huge award for Chernobyl if it wins nothing else. Which I think, you know, ultimately this series race seems to be coming down to Chernobyl and When They See Us as the two most buzzed about and acclaimed ones of the bunch. Although, you know, obviously Escape at Dannemora did very well, and Sharp Objects tanked. Not Sharp Objects. Fosse Verdon was the one that did very well. My old brain is acting up after having been up so early.
The interesting thing that I was bringing up to you guys beforehand is about the breakdown of these nominations in limited series. And so When They See Us got 16 nominations, and when you factor in limited series, writing, directing, and then the 8 acting nominations that it got, that accounts for 11 of its 16 nominations. And so that only leaves 5 below the line tech nominations, whereas Chernobyl has 19 nominations, and then you have series, limited, writing, directing, and then the 3 acting nominations that it received. That is a ton of below the line tech nominations. So that'll be something that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Although it could be one where, you know, that does well at the Creative Arts Awards, and then at the main ceremony, you know, When They See Us just cleans up.
It's crazy that A Very English Scandal got 4 major nominations and not limited series.
Well, I
That's
think it
kinda-
just shows you how stacked it is. I mean, same thing with Fosse Verdon, has a ton of below the line nominations. Of course, so I think that I don't think we're in any better position. I think the only thing we know is that Sharp Objects isn't winning.
Yeah.
Oh,
No writing or directing for that after that guy, Jean-Marc Vallée, won 2 years ago for Big Little Lies. Maybe they took his name off for some reason. I don't know.
Ouch.
I don't know. Maybe Andrea Arnold was in charge of the tabulation.
Fosse Verdon gets writing and 2 directing.
And Margaret
Nomination.
Qualley.
Yeah.
And Margaret Qualley.
That was shocking. I mean, that was the most shocking nomination, in my opinion, for Fosse Verdon. I didn't expect her to get in at all. That category was a very strange category. It was a bit barren, but I think I completely underestimated Fosse Verdon. I had it in the series prediction, and I had Rockwell and Williams in, and I think she's winning. I think she's going to be ahead of Patricia Arquette just because of the recent buzz for her performance, and because Arquette might split the vote across categories.
Counting 17 in total for Fosse Verdon, so it did even better than When They See Us. That's pretty amazing.
Look at the choreography award later when they announce those ones.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But yeah, any nominations I think When They See Us missed, we can again kind of just chalk up to, it came out on the last day of eligibility. And it's not like the Oscars where the ballots are ranked, where that can kind of offset any visibility issues. Here, you just mark as many as you want per category. So it's often just about what have people seen.
Yeah.
What do you think, Matt?
What do I think? What do I think about what?
Give us a thought.
I was this is very left field, but I was very upset that Ray Seahorn missed out for Better Call Saul. The show did well with nominations this morning. It picked up a few it hasn't in the past. It lost a couple it has gotten in the past. It stayed. Last year it got 9 nominations. This year it got 9 nominations. They also had a incredible. They submitted so many so many directing and writing episodes. Better Call Saul. And that's always a bit of a no-no from us in terms of rules because it splits the vote. It's hard to get nominated and things like that. They were able to, because of it, probably missed out on a directing nomination, but they were still able to get a writing nomination, which is a good feat considering that about 6 different episodes on the ballot. But Giancarlo Esposito sneaked in. So they got 2 supporting actor slots in a world where if you weren't a Game of Thrones actor, it was slim pickings. So they did super well. But Ray Seahorn, who had a great season, who's been consistently great in this show year after year, missed out. I just don't get why that is. And if there's another season or 2 of the show, I'm sure she'll get. I just imagine she'll get in at some point, especially without these Game of Thrones actresses. But yeah, I just don't get it.
She needed to submit her name as Ray Seahorn from Game of Thrones. That's what she needed to do. Obviously, in this year.
Well, she also had that mark on Veep this year, which makes it all the more confounding that she didn't get in because her profile was even higher.
And the Twilight Zone.
And the act.
And the act.
And the act, yeah.
But, justice for Michael McKean, finally, after he got unceremoniously snubbed last go-round when he should have won.
And look out, he could be Better Call Saul's first Emmy win.
Yeah. I'm looking at some of these other weird nominees here. So, all right, Bodyguard gets in for 2, including Best Drama Series, and no Richard Madden, who I know a lot of people had winning. No Keeley Hawes either. That's a bizarre. I mean, it's got to be in 8th place, right? How did it even manage to get in?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Magic.
Like to be fair, like none of the Succession actors got in, right? And that made it into the drama series race. I know it did a bit better.
Like 5.
Yeah. It did better. Did better at the nominations, but I feel like probably your Succession and Bodyguard were your lower scoring nominees.
And no
Yeah.
Homecoming anywhere.
No,
that's,
Houston.
that
Yeah,
show
they got
just
one
didn't.
nomination, cinematography for a half-hour series, which actually is a category that uses tapes. So possibly they did not make the popular vote in any category.
I'm going to assume also that, I mean, just speaking of Homecoming going off of like Best Actress in a Drama Series, I'm going to assume at this point if Christine Baranski couldn't get in this year, she's just never going to get in for The Good Fight. I mean, you know, they brought back Viola Davis. They brought in Mandy Moore, who got snubbed last year when everyone thought she could win. Yeah, I guess. And Robin Wright, too, for House of Cards. You know? No hard feelings towards her or Michael Kelly.
I mean, How to Get Away with Murder, you know, overperformed 3 nominations, which is the most it's ever gotten in a single year, which, you know, surprises me. As someone who actually likes the show, I had it in, okay, I did predict both guest actress and guest actor, but I did not think Viola was returning. I thought, you know, Julia Roberts was going to get in, even for a show that voters didn't necessarily like. I sort of had a feeling that Homecoming wasn't going to land with Emmy voters because, you know, it didn't perform well with the Guilds. It didn't really take off. And then I had this thought, which was, we're talking about a show directed by Sam Esmail starring Julia Roberts. Why isn't she the front runner? And then I realized it's probably not going to get a lot of nominations. So it didn't shock me.
Yeah, I kind of underestimated the Guilds this year. I love the Guilds because I don't think they get enough credit. But I thought this year that any campaigning and time would make up the difference, because what we saw at the Guilds was kind of a complete rejection of all the new shows, and then just the voters going back to shows that they had nominated in the past and kind of doubling down on them. And that's actually what we saw here at the Emmys too. So I find these drama nominations extremely disappointing.
They're also, I mean, it's like none of them even have a chance. I mean, I'm looking at shows like Pose, which only got 6 nominees, 6 nominations. You know, Billy Porter got in, which is great.
That's great.
No writing or directing. It got all.
I think Porter could win.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think so too.
Drama actors super open. I feel like any number of those guys could win.
Yeah.
I think Bateman. I can see Bateman winning, Odenkirk winning, Porter winning. I'm probably forgetting someone.
Kit Harington to make the internet go crazy.
Yeah, look, with how Game of Thrones did in nominations, I wouldn't take that off the table.
But
do you think actress is just a lockup for Sandra Oh, or is she going to get competition from her own co-star?
I mean, Jodie Comer won the BAFTA, and she seems to have gotten more acclaim this season in that she's the sole nomination in the acting category at the TCA Awards. So I think there could be a vote splitting there. I think it helps that Sandra Oh got in for SNL, like I said, unlike Rachel Brosnahan, so there is a surplus of support. And I think Ozark underperformed a little based on what I thought it would gain this year, so I don't think that Laura Linney is necessarily in that dark horse position.
I would just never rule her out because she's caused us headaches before.
I won't. But who do you guys think is in the dark horse? Because I could see, you know, Emilia Clarke being in it just because, you know, Game of Thrones, as she has no competition. It's just her, and she did, you know, her character did a bunch of stupid things, and then the writers messed up her storyline. But I think she did a very good job with what she was given. I think people did respect her work in the season. And this is her 4th nomination. I don't think that can be underestimated. That, you know, she has nominated so many times. And if they just want to give the show a big hug everywhere, I could see her being in that upset position. I'm not ready to, you know, not predict Sandra Oh yet. Just, I think it's her time. But I wouldn't be surprised if Emilia Clarke just surprised for some odd reason.
I could just hear the Twitter comments now. You know, if Emilia Clarke wins, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that.
Comments. How can you hear them?
Well, because I have a special audio Twitter, Charlie. So that's how I'm able to hear tweets, because I can't read actually.
This reminds me of the banter that started off the nominations announcement.
Oh my God! Can you please get over? I've got work to do. Damn it! Can you please get on with this?
That was so annoying.
Actually, to Luca's thing, I actually think possibly Robin Wright could be, because I could see her like writing like sort of like what John Cryer did when he won in the lead category right after the whole blow up with Charlie Sheen. She had to carry this show after the mess that was left behind after the Kevin Spacey drama, and she also stepped up as a director as well. I believe she directed the finale. Did she?
Yes, she directed the finale, and you've also got Netflix executives coming out and saying that it's because of her. She took the charge and saved the show, and not even the showrunners or producers, but they're saying like she's the one who got this thing going again.
I could see that being kind of a surprise there.
And she's super well respected, and she is the overdue horse in this race. She has been nominated for a long time here, yet to win. So she's sort of the, you always in each category, you always put a little like, there's someone who's been around who hasn't won yet, and they're always like, that's always I guess a reason either in their favor or sometimes that's against them. They haven't won yet. Why now? But good case, guys, for why she sort of could be the right time for Robin Wright.
Underestimate Viola Davis. Don't ever underestimate her. I'm not going to put her anywhere near the top, but
I think that's fair.
The fact that she got in after she missed last year, even though she got into guest, I think is says a lot about the support for her in the TV Academy. But I just wouldn't put her anywhere in the top 3 at the moment. Maybe number 4.
I think what's really interesting about this year is that even though they didn't get as many series nominations as we thought they would, how much the influence of Netflix is growing, because I think you can really attribute the inclusion of The Good Place and especially Schitt's Creek to the fact that those shows are now streaming on Netflix and have found have found an audience that way. So even though they missed the top spot to HBO by a wide margin, I think that it's still a big victory day for them.
Yeah.
What do we think?
And yet they probably still won't win a series award.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Except for maybe limited series.
Limited series.
That could happen.
That's their best shot.
Well, it's a bad. It was a bad morning for Netflix in comedy series with Glow and Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt both missing out. I know a lot of people hadn't predicted Unbreakable, but it was in my list because it's been nominated every season. It's been consistently in that category, and so it's a sad for people who like that show. It's a sad morning for them because it always seemed to squeak in there when people were predicting it and when people weren't. So Unbreakable, and they had a great final season too.
My beloved Titus Burgess, who should be winning for that wonderful Cats episode. I guess maybe next year if they get into the limited series TV movie categories with that.
He should have multiple trophies at this point.
He should. He really should. That's, I think that I didn't have it in my predictions map, but, the fact that it got in last year with 8 nominees, I think that it could theoretically have been in like that 8th place, But I think, as evidenced by the fact that it got in nowhere, I don't think it was anywhere near their radar because Netflix kind of seemed to have more or less abandoned it in favor of things like Russian Doll.
Yeah, which did very well. Russian Doll did great in that with nominations. Yeah,
13
Glow,
nominations.
Talk about a precipitous drop from last year. Glow, went down from 10 nominations to just 5. And no Alison Brie again, no Mark Maron, no.
But still, Ben Gilpin got in still.
I know, yeah. With that's the cat. If only we could just predict 8 nominees in that category every single year. We could always get it right.
I'm happy with my 6 out of 6 because I definitely was not going to predict the 2 Fleabag actresses.
Yeah, my God.
Okay.
But yeah, the 10 nominations for Glow last year were, 10 good nominations. But the fact that, Allison in, the fact that Mark Maron couldn't get in. I sort of had a feeling that it was going to be weaker this season just because the last season aired, an entire year ago, and the third season hasn't premiered yet.
Yeah.
So I think that might have been its, drop in nominations. And from what I've heard, the early reactions for season 3 are not positive as well. Not that that matters, but it's not going to help it in terms of winning anything, if that's really true, what I've heard.
I was wondering why they hadn't premiered it yet, because I figured like a good strategy to put it on in the summertime while voting was going on. But if what you say is true, then maybe that's why they didn't do it.
Yeah, but
how do we feel about the best movie category, where Deadwood has 8 nominations and Black Mirror has 2? Is anyone going to predict Black Mirror with me?
No. I'm going to predict My Dinner with Hervé. That's what I'm going to in my No Guts, No Glory. Why do they even have this category anymore?
So really that Ian McShane and Timothy Oliphant can have an Emmy.
Yeah, there you go. And neither one of them can get nominated for acting.
They're both producers. They're both executive producers on it.
Oh well, then now they have to win.
Yeah.
Yeah. No acting
Black Mirror again.
It's crazy that Deadwood got 8 nominations and not one for acting, not one for writing or directing. It's all below the line, and yet it still is the nominations leader in this category.
Yeah, I think we've got a bit of a Twin Peaks situation here. And I think what is really motivating my prediction here is that, like in the last 5 years or so, we've had an entire quarter of the membership come in. We've got all these millennials like me and Luca and Zach and who have
everybody
who didn't necessarily watch Deadwood when it was on, but they have seen Black Mirror at some point in the last several years. And I think that level of visibility will be able to carry Black Mirror through in the end, even if there's no passion for it.
Yeah. I would agree with you if that was a Black Mirror episode on par with, say, like San Junipero and Callister, which Bandersnatch wasn't. And in this case, you've got Deadwood, which in terms of the Academy membership, with all the new membership, great, but there's still a vast majority of the old membership that still remembers this show, and it is the biggest nominee in this category, and it'll get a lot of the below the line stuff because it's a period piece. So I think, quite frankly, I think to go with anything other than Deadwood is ridiculous.
I think it's kind of like when we saw Sherlock win for its worst episode against All the Way, which had twice as many nominations. But yeah, All the Way didn't have a built-in fan base, but it did have people who would, check out HBO movies every year, which we thought would be enough. But enough people had seen Sherlock at some point in the last several years.
And about the TV movies and all these acting races, I think they are honestly the underdogs. We've seen in recent years that someone like Al Pacino couldn't get in last year for a TV movie. This year, Anthony Hopkins, Benedict Cumberbatch, Ian McShane, all these, big names could not get in for it. I think it's almost poisonous to be in a TV movie at this point if you want to get into these acting races, which is why I have to say, sometime this week, I took out all TV movies because I just saw this continue to rise, unfortunately.
I did too. I had Ian McShane in, I had Gerald McCraney, and I had Robin Weigert, and I took them all out last night in favor of Jor-El Jerome and other, contenders for limited series. Because, as acclaimed as those actors are and as good as their performances are, it just seems as though they're not being watched. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch, a guy who's won Emmys before, is a perennial nominee, and even he can't get in. I think that he's just going to have to commit to a multi-part series at this point if he ever wants to come back to the Emmy race.
I believe he's been nominated 7 of the last 8 years, and the only year he missed was when he didn't have anything eligible because he was getting an Oscar nomination instead.
Right. He's just going to have to comfort himself with all that Avengers Endgame money, So.
All right. What else do we have? Do we have any thoughts on a variety talk series?
Congratulations, John Oliver. For your Your next. I'm so sad. I mean, poor Seth Meyers. I don't know what he has to do at this point to get into series. You know, because I mean, obviously he's been nominated in other categories this year, so you know, it's not. You know, I shouldn't feel too bad for him, but I do. You know, I think that it means a lot for him to have his show recognized, just because that's for everybody who works on it. And you know, it's like he's doing great political commentary year after year, and they keep overlooking him. But I mean, it's a hard category to crack into because everybody's doing good work.
I admire whoever's in charge of James Corden's Emmy strategy, because the main show itself only gets 3 nominations, but they managed to submit it across 4 program categories, and it just racks up nominations for the main show, Carpool Karaoke, the series, the Carpool Karaoke special, and also
I got a writing nomination.
Paul McCartney Carpool Karaoke special is apparently a different thing.
It's a different special. James
Last
Corden
year they had
the special starring James Corden.
James Corden is like Noah Cross in Chinatown. It's like, how much more do you need? How much, you know, like, how many more Emmys could you possibly want? You know, like.
I was quite disappointed in the competition program race, where it really seemed like we might get America's Got Talent in after it got its PGA nomination, and we might get The Masked Singer in.
I never bought
especially with Ken Jeong announcing the nominations. But it was not a great morning for Ken Jeong with The Masked Singer or Darcy Carden for The Good Place. I think maybe if she had submitted for Barry, we could have seen a nomination there, seeing as they got their entire main cast nominated.
I'm really sad about that. I mean, you know, they get her up at the crack of dawn not the crack of dawn. It's only 8:30, but for some of us, it's still the crack of dawn. You know, to announce these nominees, and you know, her show gets in. The episode that she would have submitted gets in for writing, and she still can't manage to get in. I mean, it's, you know, felt bad for her, and Kristen Bell as well. I thought she was very deserving. But I mean, who saw Nailed It coming? Has anybody watched Nailed It?
I have.
It's fun.
It's fun.
That's just more of that Netflix, you know, just domination. You know, we know that they've at least watched it because it's streaming.
And Survivor is hands down the best reality competition program and does not get nominated yet again.
It's not an Emmy morning until I hear Matt say that.
Yeah. It's like, it's unbelievable. The storytelling that they do and the scale on which they do that show. I just cannot believe that they never nominate it for best series. I just don't get it.
I don't know. What was it? I always have to go back and I was very surprised that the Queer Eye guys did not get nominated for host. I thought that was going to be pretty safe.
Yeah, I guess there are just too many of them. I figured that their snub last year was just because the show had come out too late. Maybe people hadn't necessarily seen it, which seemed crazy at the time. But now, a full year later, they still don't get in, and Marie Kondo gets in for another Netflix show.
Yeah,
actually had her.
At least Nick Offerman has an Emmy nomination now.
Finally.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear final thoughts, starting with you, Luca.
The next 2 months are obviously going to be very interesting. I think the drama category is, you know, drama series. I don't think anyone's going to argue about Game of Thrones winning. I think the comedy series races are still up in the air. There's, you know, a lot to still be seen with race, and I think we're in for a lot of surprises. And limited series, we have this big battle between Chernobyl and When They See Us, and I'll be very interested to see how many they pick up, if Chernobyl does better below the line and When They See Us does better above the line, or if, you know, Chernobyl just performs well in general, or When They See Us. And I'm very curious to see who will upset in categories where vote splitting will be a factor, like drama supporting actress. If it'll be Julia Garner, will it be Fiona Shaw? This year's race are very interesting, and for me, more interesting than some of the last years because they're so wild.
And Matt.
Great. Yeah, no, some exciting nominations. Look, Game of Thrones for mine. There's a lot of things to praise about that final season, but it's a shame I think it got so many nominations at the expense of some other worthy contenders from other series. And it's sort of taken a bit of the suspense out of Best Drama Series, at least for now, unless procrastinating minds can machinate some different sort of theories over the next couple of months. But comedy's where the real drama is, and I'm excited. I think there's 4 series that have a legitimate case to be made for the comedy series winner, and I think those 4 are Barry, Fleabag, Maisel, and Veep. And it'll be interesting to see the different arguments that are put forward and how the campaigns are run, and just how this crazy race plods on forward.
Comedy's where the real drama is. That'll be the opening line of this write-up. All right, Tony?
Perfect.
I just wanted to say that I'm so happy. I've been so bored by the comedy side for so long that to see, and not just the ones that we've talked about, but to see Christina Applegate get in for Dead to Me, which is just a brilliant performance she's giving on that show, and Schitt's Creek and Russian Doll and Fleabag, that you actually you could arguably make room for shows like Catastrophe, and to see Pen 15 getting thrown in, which I love that show. It's really, really interesting to see that the comedy series is really where our focus is going to be, and I think it's kind of refreshing that's a great problem to have.
And Charlie?
Let's see. What thoughts do I have? By the way, I want to thank the people who like Christoph Waltz and the Bond movies for doing my lighting here. So I have a couple points I just want to get across. First of all, animated program, great day for Netflix. Both Big Mouth and BoJack Horseman get nominated for Outstanding Animated Program. I think that race is going to be really interesting to watch. I wish we had seen Will Arnett get in for a voiceover performance for BoJack, but can't have everything. I was a bit disappointed that Patriot Act with Hassan Minhaj didn't get into the Variety Talk nomination program category. Also disappointed that Broad City and the other 2 didn't get nominated anywhere. Hack Into Broad City did get nominated in the short form categories, though. And just something that I found really weird. So we know that there were 2 documentaries this year about the failed Fire Festival that happened. And the Netflix documentary, Fire, the Greatest Festival That Never Happened, scored the informational series nomination and the directing for a nonfiction program. But in the writing category, it was the Hulu documentary that got nominated. Because apparently the anecdote about the guy having to take one for the team just wasn't writerly enough for them. And if you don't know what I'm referencing, watch that documentary on Netflix. It's fantastic.
And Zach?
Well, I mean, what more can I say other than I hope that they save the comedy races for last, because that's where the real drama is at, as Matt so elegantly put it. I'm really excited to see what happens next year when the Game of Thrones is not around to gobble up nominations in every single category. I'm really excited to see how this whole thing shapes up in terms of, vote splitting and, where the real competition is at. So.
Yeah, I'll say watch out for Barry. I mean, that even got nominated in Score over Nicholas Britell for Succession. So the love for that show is insane. On the drama side, I think it's pretty pathetic what's going on, where we're supposedly in the age of peak TV, and we have a show that was poorly received, not only getting nominated, but also competing for the win and scoring a record level of nominations.